All right, guys, this is the last problem I'm going to show you tonight to prepare us for how to solve word problems with fractional pieces where we're taking away from one or more wholes. In this problem, we have Ms. Russian, Mrs. Mueller, Mr. Rubino, and Mrs. Marsh all sharing 2 pizzas for lunch. As soon as I see that I'm dealing with 2 wholes and not one, I'll go ahead and draw 2 little pizzas over here to remind me that I'm dealing with 2 wholes. Now I'm going to start moving on to my clues about who ate what amounts of the pizza. Ms. Russian ate a fourth. Mr. Rubino ate 2/3, and Miss Mueller ate half of a pizza. The question we're being asked, what we're trying to find, is the 4th person, Mrs. Marsh. How much does she get? What's left for her? So let's write down the fractions that we're dealing with. We need to add up the bites, the amounts that were eaten or taken from the pizza. So 1/4 was eaten by Miss Russian, 2/3 of it was eaten by Mr. Rubino, and then half of a pizza was eaten by Mrs. Mueller. We can't add these fractions, though, until they have like denominators. So we have to think, what is a number that works for 4, 3, and 2? Now, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can go ahead and figure out what 4 times 3 times 2 is, because that number will obviously work. Or you can pick a smaller number that's going to let you have to do less math later on, the least common denominator. The best way to do that is start listing when you multiply by 4, what numbers do you hit, when you multiply by 3, when you multiply by 2, until you run into the first number that all 3 have in common. Another way to do this, if you have a multiplication table, is to go down your 4 column, your 3 column, and your 2 column, and look for the first number that you see in both or all 3 of those columns. The number you're going to run into is 12. So we're going to go ahead and change these numbers, these fractions, so that they all have 12 as their denominator. I know it takes 3 4s to make 12, so that's what I have to multiply the top by. 1/4 is then going to become 3/12. So Miss Russian's 1/4 is the same as eating 3/12. Then I look at Mr. Rubino's 2/3. What do I have to multiply 3 by to get to 12? 4. So I'm going to have to multiply the 2 by 4 as well, which means his 2/3 is the same as 8/12. Finally, we come to Miss Mueller's half of a pizza. Half is usually pretty easy for people to do. We know most of our halves. So when we think about a half, how many 2s does it take to make 12? It takes 6. 1 times 6 is 6. So that half of a pizza is the same as 6/12. Once I've gone and I've changed those numbers, I'm now going to add them together. I want to know how much of the pizza was eaten by everybody else except for Miss Marsh in total. So I'm adding them up. 3 plus 8 is 11, plus 6 is 17. So 17/12 of pizza that was ordered was eaten. Let's go back to those pizzas. How many 12ths are in each pizza? Well, if each pizza is a whole, then there's 12 12ths in each. And if we have 2 pizzas, that means altogether we have 24 12ths. So out of the 24 12ths pizza that was available to everybody, the 3 Piggly Wigglies who ate first ate 17 12ths. Now we can move on to our final step, which is going to be subtracting the amount that was eaten from the total so that we can find out how much was left for poor Mrs. Marsh. Let's see if she gets an amount that's worth eating. So we're going to do 24 12ths minus the 17 12ths that the 3 friends already ate. How much is left for Miss Marsh by the time she gets there? 24 minus 17, let's think, 24 take away a 10 is 14. How much more do we need to take away? We need to take 7 more. 14 minus 7 is 7. So there is 7/12 of a pizza left over for Miss Marsh to eat, which is a little more than a half. Not bad, I'd say. I think they left her a fair amount. That's the last word problem for tonight. So if you want to stop and rewatch it or pause and look at what we did, you can. If you have questions, hit me up in your inbox.